Good evening. Welcome to the Spiritual But Not Religious Show. I'm your host, George Lewis. I've got a great guest tonight. Matter of fact, we tried to do this show a couple of weeks ago, I guess, and we had a little problem. We were doing the guest on a cell phone. That never really works out very well. Before I introduce my guest, let me tell you a bit about the Spiritual Broadcasting Network and about the Spiritual But Not Religious Show, what we're doing and why we're doing it. The churches in the last 10, 15 years have really seen a big exodus in the way of membership, to where they've lost huge amounts of people, and actually has been an offshoot called Spiritual But Not Religious. So people were leaving the church not because they didn't find some higher power or weren't looking for some spiritual life. They just weren't finding it in their church, for whatever the reasons may be. And as a matter of fact, 20% of the population today in the United States declares themselves as being spiritual but not religious. Now that's a large number of people. And because they don't really have a place that they all commune together, like at a church or some kind of a group, we really lose our voice. And so the Spiritual Broadcasting Network is about bringing the many diverse voices of consciousness transformation to you. And the Spiritual But Not Religious Show is exactly what it says. And we interview authors, filmmakers, people who are on the cutting edge of this consciousness transformation movement. And my guest tonight is very definitely right out there out front. He's done a couple of documentary films. He and his two partners and a couple of producers. Joe Martino is a filmmaker. His first film was Collective Evolution and the Human Experience. And they've done a second one called the Collective Evolution 2, the Human Experience. I've watched them both. They're well done. So I think you'll enjoy it. Tom, we got Joe on the line there.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Joe.
Hey.
Looks like we're going to make it through tonight. We're going to have a good show, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. We just got really moving the last time, and had a great show going. I was sorry to see that end.
Yeah, it was unfortunate.
Yeah, well, but things tend to work out the way they're supposed to, huh?
Yeah, they always kind of work themselves out.
Yeah, somehow or other. So, I watched your second film again, and I want to compliment you on you guys. You did a nice job with the first one, but your experience shows through on your second one. It's a nice improvement. It's a good film. One of the things that you start the movie with is a screen with just text on it. And you make a statement I want to talk about a little bit. It says the collective. Well, you know what? Before I go there, let's go back. I want to get some background on you before we get into your film. Tell us about Joe and where you were raised and a little bit about your spiritual life growing up, and give us some background information so we can get some idea of how you got here to the kind of films you're making now.
Sure, yeah, that sounds good. Well, basically, I was actually raised, funny enough, I was raised in a Catholic family, Italian background, so the Catholic stuff was there since basically birth, and I went through the Catholic schooling and all that sort of stuff. So in terms of spirituality, I mean, it was really more so just religion, and it never really sat too well with me my whole life. It wasn't until, I guess, about around high school that I really started to question a lot more of it and really began to step out of it. I mean, to a degree, I had bought into a lot of it growing up, and, I went through all the sacraments and all that sort of stuff, but, I always had this kind of inkling that, something's not quite right here, and I really started to figure that out, and as I did, I finally just decided, hey, you know what, this stuff's not really resonating with me anymore, and there's something more going on here. So a search really began at that point, and at the same time, in and around high school, there was education was always a big trigger for me because I saw through education to the point where I knew what was going on. I knew what it was all about. I could see that it was just conditioning. They were conditioning the individual to work in the working force and for everybody to kind of be the same.
Absolutely. Cookie cutter, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, as I saw that and as I started to say that to others and share that with others, it was kind of like you get a lot of backlash because, everybody's kind of going through it at that point, and where, people are getting excited about university and all that sort of stuff. And me, on the other hand, I was more so getting excited about, I can't wait to graduate grade 12 here and then go do a trade or go do something or, and it was always hard for me to figure out what I wanted to do because for me, it was like, I have no idea what my place is here. I have no idea what I want. Everything that I would love to do, there's really no money in it, so to speak.
I understand that.
Yeah, so it kind of put me on a journey of self-discovery. I mean, I did end up going to post-secondary education 3 different times. And in each time, I lasted about a semester or in one case, a full year before I dropped out. And I just kept going back because you get pressure from the family, you get pressure from the friends. You don't know what else to do. The world seems, so much against you, so to speak. And I just wasn't listening to the inside at that point. And so I kind of hit a bit of a low point in the sense that, I was depressed. I was not feeling like I was enjoying what I was doing in my life and all that sort of stuff. And
did you see yourself as a rebel at the same time?
I mean, in a sense, you get this feeling. I mean, it's a little bit difficult because you're sharing what you're sharing and you're making the choices you're making while all of your other friends and everybody else, what they're doing is completely different. And, conversations sometimes were a little bit awkward because, you're sharing things that are maybe something that they're very into and you're sharing kind of the opposite side to it. And, it sometimes doesn't fly over that well and all that sort of stuff. So you feel like it doesn't quite fit in,
right.
To a degree where, it would if I was just doing, the norm, so to speak. And then basically what happened is I ended up really exploring, the real world, so to speak. So how the world actually functions, how it actually works, and, into that whole, what people call the conspiracy side of things. And it eventually led me to a point where I was pushed onto an accelerated spiritual type of path where I really began to know my inner self, began to see the ego and to see how that functioned, what that was all about. And beginning to see beyond that, you begin to really see what your true self is all about. And as I did that, that's when I guess everything kind of just exploded, and it led me to joining up with some other friends and creating Collective Evolution. And from there, we've done the documentaries. We're now doing the Shift project. There's so much going on, and it's all basically because of the one trigger moment where eventually it just got to a point where it's like I can't keep doing this stuff anymore, and my soul decided, hey, he's ready now, and then all of a sudden everything just kind of exploded onto this accelerated path.
I cannot tolerate the path that is supposedly chosen for me. I think that takes for some people, Joel, that takes courage. I don't know about you, but for me, I'm much the same as you, and I don't know how much courage was involved. I think it would have taken more courage maybe to stayed in the saddle, and tried to put the yoke on and do what everybody. I just couldn't do that. That wasn't in the cards for me either. So, coming down to your film, tell us about. It's a collaborative effort. You got a couple of. It looks to me like you have 2 partners who actually do the film work, but you also have a mentor in the midst there. Am I right?
Yeah. Are we talking the newest one there, Collective Evolution 2?
Yes, Evolution 2. Yes.
Yeah. Basically, what we do is we kind of do everything collectively in terms of coming up with the actual script and the outline for everything. That kind of comes together where we just decide what is most important to put out there right now, and we kind of decide, okay, this is what it's going to be, and then we come together as a team and say, all right, how can we make this most effective? We'll do an interview with Franco there, who's I guess a little bit of the mentor type thing, where he gives us his take on things and all that sort of stuff based on the material that we're looking to present, and then at the same time we give our take on it, and we throw in our whole side of things. So we kind of get a bevy of voices and a bevy of opinions and experiences. It's not even really opinion. It's a bevy of our own truth that we have access to, and we all put that in there. Right. And in terms of the team, it does go larger than just the other two partners there, the other two guys. The other girls are involved as well in the creation. They're also in the documentary there. So it's kind of just a big group effort of everybody just kind of putting in their skills and their voice and their, everything that they feel that they want to share.
Which is really the basis for all good film, isn't it? That collaborative effort. So let's talk a bit about. You mentioned you had a pretty in-depth spiritual path going on. Was that with Franco? Is it Di Nicola?
Yep.
Was that with Franco?
Yeah. What ended up happening is I was with two of the people that we initially started Collective Evolution with. We were working together in finance, and they ended up bumping into. I guess it was Franco's partner at the time, and they talked and things just kind of clicked, and it was like, you know what, like we should meet up again, we should hang out. And so they came home, they told me about it, and I was like, you know what, this really piqued our interest, because at the time we were really delving into a lot of very interesting things. Like we were starting to get into a lot of existential type of questions, getting into how the world really functions. We were kind of seeing through things that nobody's really talking about a lot. So it was really interesting, and the timing was just perfect. And we ended up going and meeting Franco, and the way he put things, I guess, what he does is he just basically he shares, and he doesn't really tell you anything to the degree where he's preaching to you or he's giving you the answers or anything of that nature. All he does is he shares, and
right.
What happens is from there you go away and you have your own experience, and everything that is shared from each one of us from the Collective Evolution team is stuff we've directly experienced or stuff we directly will resonate with. And that's the whole thing, is he always allows you to have your own journey, so to speak, because that's really the true way of really discovering not only yourself, but the true nature beyond the reality that we know now.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. A good teacher will help you find the truth that's already in you.
Absolutely.
As opposed to try and give you his truth. You have, early on in the film, I think it's like the first or second screen, you make a statement that it's a pretty powerful statement. And by the way, I think you know that we're on the same page, you and I. We very much on very similar messages. In that you say the collective evolution is an inherent truth we all hold. Mm-hmm. You believe that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything that we share there, we're taking from, and it's coming from pure source. And that's the thing, is we're not teaching anything to anyone. We're not giving anything that we don't already have access to. I mean, the difference is here is that certain souls are basically just getting in touch with it in different ways and at different times. And so they're kind of guided and inspired to share the same message that everybody has access to through different mediums. And what that does is it allows others to begin to explore it. And so, by that statement, all we're really saying is, if you really go inside, if you really go how this feels, you really begin to strip beyond the mind, beyond the belief systems and everything that we've previously programmed not programmed, but believed our reality once was. You begin to see that there's an inherent truth there. There's an inherent knowing that we all have access to, and we, the way we share it, we just share it from a level of neutrality and a level of understanding that just says, what, this is it, that we're willing to share. This is what we're putting out there, and just see how it feels for you. And that's the whole point. Is we really want people to go inside versus just go from the mind level and say, what, this sounds like it's not it, or it just isn't it. Really feel it. Really go beyond the stories, go beyond the beliefs.
So I think the key to what you're saying there is the need to go inside and go within. And there's so many cultures and so many people that really haven't, that doesn't even they don't fathom that at all, that whole idea. It's like they like you talk about it, they have the program and they're running the program.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up Catholic, right? So I think a lot of the questions I asked when I was young, even asking my parents, is, I'd say, like, well, where does it come from? Like, well, how do you know this? Like, and then the big one for me, what made me realize is there was a couple triggers, but one of them was just like, as I was growing up, I was going, well, if I didn't learn this through school and through my parents, how would I have found this, or how would I have picked up on this? And then I asked my parents, like, did you just grow up in this, or did you find this? And and what I came to understand is that basically people are taught a lot of these religions and a lot of this stuff from a very, very young age, and they kind of don't really have a choice, because not because they don't have a choice as to what to believe in, but just that when you're being given information and programmed information from such a young age, especially from your parents, you grow a certain belief system. There's a certain strength within the mind that information creates, and so it also creates an identity, and also you can attach certain fears around it. So now all of a sudden, when new information comes in, it's like, wow, you're really pushing a button there. That's something that I've identified with, that I've had in my mind for so long. And that was a big thing for me to realize that, like, if people weren't taught this from a very, very young age, they probably wouldn't really believe it as much, or even to the degree that they do just being taught from a young age. So that was a trigger, and there was a lot of various things throughout religion too, that as I would read various things, or you'd realize that Jesus was kind of he's talking about unconditional love, but at the same time he's judging you based on whether you're going to heaven or hell, because if you do things right, you can do this. If you do things wrong, then you go here. And it's like, but I thought he loved you unconditionally. This kind of just doesn't make sense, right? So there was a lot of things that really kind of tipped me off to make me realize, yeah, you know what, this isn't really the truth. And not only that, but it's just coming from a book that it was man-made. Men wrote it. And if you really, really examine the Bible, and even a lot of books, religious books, there always seems to be a human ego involved in all of it. It's written from an ego level of consciousness versus a true, clear state level of consciousness. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, with the ego state. Well, the other part of it is that, in what you're saying, that keeps us kind of in that trap is if the only research we're doing is within the scripture that's meant to hold you within this, that religion, you really, it's a circular. You're not going to get out of it that way either. I don't know. I think so many people, they don't. For me, Joe, this is the most important question I can ask. What is God? Why am I? Why am I here? And what place do I have, and all that? So that I did a lot of research, like you did, a whole lot of studying, and but most people, I don't think really do. Joe, do you? You think that like that the numbers are equal with people who do the research?
Well, I mean, I would say now more than ever, a lot more people are open, a lot more people are searching. I think in the past, I think it's evident that not many people really, I mean, if you look at the numbers-wise, not many people really looked too far outside of what was taught early on or anything like that, because, and even by design, when you look at the system, if say someone is not religious or something, I mean, an existential type of question isn't really something that's important in everyday life, so to speak. It's like kind of off in the background. Maybe you'll think about it when you're on vacation at the cottage somewhere looking up at the stars. It's not the kind of thing where you're going about your daily life and you're saying, why are we here? Why are we actually here? And why am I sitting in my car in traffic driving to work to spend, the majority of my life just doing things that I absolutely do not even like to do? And, people don't really think about that. They just kind of go through a little bit of the robotic nature of the system and of life, and they don't do too much research. But I think the important thing to realize now, and I would say over the past 5 years for sure, intensifyingly, is that people are really beginning to ask a lot more questions. They're beginning to look a lot further because things are becoming a lot more uncomfortable, and you can see it in people. You can see that, hey, this stuff's not resonating anymore. It's not. They're trying to search for more. I mean, I've seen people that you would never think, just not even from a judgment standpoint, but just when you observe their life and what they're doing, and then all of a sudden one day there's a big shift in their life, and you're just like, wow, that just happened, and you're now looking at things completely different, and that's happening with a lot of people, and it's accelerating really quickly. So it's really exciting to observe how much people are actually beginning to open up.
Yeah, timing is a key factor with pretty much everything, especially growth. And when you're talking about spirituality, you're talking about spiritual growth. And of course, you go into the idea of the collective growth. And I think we're at a point where, like you say, everything is accelerating. Like 25 or 30 years ago, I was talking this same kind of stuff, and you were of the devil, and you were, a weirdo. It was all pretty strange to people, but it's changed a whole lot.
Absolutely.
And I think it's because its time has come,
Mm-hmm.
as much as anything. So, Joe, what's the premise of your film? What is your premise? What was your basic? What were you trying to accomplish with it?
Well, I mean, after creating the first film, which, you know, it went in kind of more to the systematic, kind of the external world, and then it began to touch in the end on the internal world a lot more. We wanted to bring in, for the second one, a lot more of an understanding of the internal world, the human experience as a whole, and just, you know, kind of how things really function. In a sense, the true nature of our reality. Because what we wanted to do with that is begin to open people up to what is really going on and to how they really function. What kind of drives them on a daily basis. And if we can get them to understand that and we can get them to open up to that, what then happens is they can begin to go on a journey of self-discovery where they're going to begin to observe everything in their life. And this isn't something that we're going to do for them. We just trigger various things within them that allow them to then observe their own life. Because, I mean, I think anytime we do any of the films or any of the work that we do, we're always just kind of planting a seed of you know what, look inside, observe, do this yourself. Go and really feel how this feels for you. Because a lot, especially when we get into the later half of the documentary, when we start going into the ego, when we start going into the shift and all that sort of stuff, there's a lot of there's a lot of practical examples. There's a lot of things in there. Even when we get into quantum physics a little bit, that kind of begin to really ask the person to observe and to really look at their life and how they function, how their mind creates certain things, how they make their choices, how their dreams came about. By dreams, I mean, when you look at what they want to be doing, if you look at, hey, I want to have this career, this amount of money, this whatever, where does that even come from? All that sort of stuff. So when you begin to observe that, you begin to see that a lot of what we do and a lot of what we're choosing is coming from a level of consciousness within the ego that's basically just saying, this is out of fear, this is out of survival, this is out of needing some sort of material gain, this is out of creating some form of identity, all that sort of stuff. And if you can begin to see beyond that and begin to disempower that and start choosing from a different level of consciousness, a state where you're actually conscious of what you're doing and what you're experiencing and what you're choosing, we can create collectively a completely different world. And even on an individual standpoint, like, personally in my own life, like the changes that have happened just from creating from a conscious standpoint versus from just the program and allowing it to do what it needs to do, your life completely transforms. And it's not something that is like, oh yeah, now I'm rich, I have all this. It's just the level of peace you experience and the amount of stuff the amount of growth that you begin to have is just completely different. So the premise was essentially just to allow others to have that understanding, to begin to question, begin to look at, and begin to kind of deprogram, so to speak, and open themselves up to a world of basically infinite potentiality and peace.
So for our audience, give us some contrast in your life as how it was before you had this, what it sounds like an awakening, a spiritual experience. How was it for you before versus now? When you say you find more peace, give us a real contrast there. Some other examples of how your life has changed because of this information, because of this inner work.
Okay, for sure. I mean, one thing right off the bat, I probably wouldn't be on this phone in front of the camera right now doing this with you because
I'm sure of that one, yeah.
because back then I was quite shy. There was a lot of things that I went through growing up, all that sort of stuff, especially through school. I mean, school made me feel, and this is just from my own personal experience, which is awesome, but it made me feel small. It made me feel very powerless, just based on the experience that happened and everything. And I would say that back before, I guess, I kind of really began to deprogram everything, there wasn't a level of peace playing out in my life because I was, in fear a lot. There was a lot of confusion and not knowing what I was supposed to be doing, how I was supposed to be fitting my way into this world. I was never an angry person. I never really got mad or anything like that. I'm trying to think of some other examples that would really hit home as to big changes. I mean, just how I interact with others,
Yes.
All that sort of stuff, it really shifted.
And your fear level, it sounds like, went down pretty powerfully.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the level of fear that I had in speaking, in front of others and this, that, and whatever, it really shifted. Now, I can't say that I don't experience some level of nervousness when going up in front of people and all that sort of stuff. It does happen, but is it to the point that it was before? Absolutely not. It's completely different, and even just, but back before, the experiences and all that sort of stuff, there was a lot of times where I would be very down or very depressed. People wouldn't know it, but inside, like when you go home and you're, at night and you're just kind of in your bed and you're kind of saying, wow, I'm not enjoying this. I don't like what's happening here. It's just not feeling right and all that sort of stuff. The biggest difference was beginning to come to an understanding of why, to a degree I was the way I was, and why I was seeing what I was seeing before the awakening experience. It's now to understand it and to see it brings you a level of, okay, I get it. Now I really see it. Now I'm stepping into a level of understanding myself where I can be at a state of peace because, I now see what I'm here to do and what I'm here to contribute and all that sort of stuff. And it brings you a completely different level of peace. And even, too, when you look at just when you go back to the things of how you run, how you what drives you on a daily basis, all that sort of stuff. What used to drive me doesn't drive me to a degree at all anymore. Like I was never really driven by money or anything like that in the past, but to be driven by getting some form of recognition, or be driven by to get some form of fame to a degree, or some sort of people to know certain things. I mean that just isn't existent anymore. It's more so just about I do what I do because that's what I feel inspired to do, and those are the choices I'm going to make. And I'm not going to be stopped by the stories of others, the stories in my mind, or anything of that nature.
So your motives have changed then.
Absolutely.
So did you have some kind of a structured method or way to take this inner journey where you really started to look at your ego and discover what you believed and who you were, or was it kind of like it just kind of occurred?
Well, I mean, I would say that myself and like everyone else, I mean, everybody is going to have kind of a completely different way of going about it and way of going through it. So I wouldn't say that there was a structure that I had, or there was a structure that anybody should necessarily take, but it's kind of like if you can really, I always use the word just observe. Observation is such a huge thing with all of this stuff, because when you begin to observe what triggers certain feelings you have, or begin to observe, why did I make that choice, or why do I want to make this choice over here, you begin to see the motives behind it, what's driving it. And that was a huge, huge thing for me in really discovering where things were coming from. Not only that, and this is something that I've spoken to people about before, and some people relate to it and some people don't. I was able to feel a frequency difference between when I was coming from a level of mind or an ego, and when I was coming from my true inner self. There's a frequency experience that I feel inside myself that, hey, you know what, this is coming, this is a little bit, I guess it vibrates, the feeling is a little bit lower when it was coming from ego, whereas it felt very light, very freeing when it was coming from a level of my soul, my inner understanding. And that was another big thing for me. And I mean, other people, I've heard converse with many people. Some people, they get a feeling that just comes from, where the heart chakra would lie, and that's how they would know that something's coming from the inner self. Some people, they just, like to meditate. Some people are very into, quieting the mind, going into a meditative state, and looking at things from that standpoint. I say everybody's different. Everybody has their own way of really finding it and really, going through the self-discovery. But I think everybody can use just the observation method for sure. I mean, if you can observe and always see what's going on, what's driving you, and all that sort of stuff, it really does a huge thing. And another thing that's 100% essential, I would say, is really look at the judgment side of things. Because what often happens is, as we begin to look at things and as we begin to feel, the mind and ego really wants to bring in some form of judgment, to classify it, to categorize it in some way as right or wrong or good or bad, or whether it feels good or whether it doesn't feel good, and all that sort of stuff. And if you kick all the judgment aside, like try not to define anything, you begin to really see what's going on a lot clearer.
Well, see, and I hear what you're saying, but somewhere along the line, those ideas came, I would say, to you from outside of yourself, like maybe it was Franco or what you were reading. There was something guiding you through that process, I would suspect. There are several methods out there for those folks who, like are kind of struggling, not knowing exactly where they want to go. One of the older ones was written by a guy named Ken Keyes. It's called Handbook to Higher Consciousness. And it actually lays out a formula, like of how to begin to take this internal journey and really, to look at yourself. I get the idea you're pretty blessed by having an in-person teacher as opposed to a book.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely Franco has been a huge factor in allowing, especially when you're observing something, you're feeling something out, and you're going, you know what, I can feel that this is there, I can feel what's going on here, but I'm not quite sure. Can we play with this? Can we go through some clarity? Let's see how this feels. And and he'd provide that resource for you and allowing you to really explore it a little bit deeper, really see it and all that sort of stuff. So having him as a resource and as a teacher and basically exploring has been huge, absolutely. Another thing that if I was going to name a resource that particularly when I read the first 2 chapters of the book A New Earth,
yes.
I actually have only read the first 2 chapters and then snippets here and there, but those first 2 chapters I read right near the beginning of everything, and I remember him stating certain things like, not everybody's going to understand this book fully. I mean, some people are going to read this and not know what's going on. Some people are going to be completely ready for this. And reading that and going through it, and I was like, wow, it's really interesting. And then he just hits it with you with the ego and how it functions and the way it works. And all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, like this makes so much sense. And my life just, that combined with what's going on with Franco and all that sort of stuff just completely changed.
Well, when we talk about the ego, like I see it as kind of, there are 2 egos. There's this self-esteem id from psychology, and there's ego, which is the negative ego or the false pride and ego. I believe that Christianity, or early Christianity, probably had a handle on that. It got all confused, but I think when they talk about the devil or Satan or any of that kind of thing, when you start to look at what's going on, it's really happening within us, and it is that ego side of us that's doing its damage to us. I've had to do a lot of in-depth work around that shadow self, if you will, the dark side, that ego side. I don't think you can be on a spiritual path, like you were saying, without doing that kind of work. Can I ask how old you are?
I'm 24.
I'll tell you, I have to admire that you found your way here at this early age. I'd say you see yourself as maybe an indigo child?
I've actually never really looked into the whole indigo, that whole thing for myself in particular.
Right. Well, there's a definite difference in how some young people think, and usually, like to come to where you're at in the past has been late 30s, early 40s, after you've had, like you were saying earlier, you hit this place where, gosh, I've been doing this all this time, and I thought it was going to get me feeling this, and I was going to everything, and it isn't working. So, is this all there is? You've come to it pretty early, which tells me actually that like you've got a lot of work ahead of you as far as bringing this message out, because I think we just need to be able to say it in so many different ways in order to reach the diversity of people that need to hear the message.
Absolutely. I mean, it definitely now is the time where this message needs to get out there, and it's going to keep getting out there, and it's going to come out from so many different people, and so many more people are going to begin to keep sharing and sharing and sharing and sharing, because it's at a point where it's essentially unstoppable, and it's not even that we're creating a whole revolution here or anything like that. It's just everybody is looking for this. A lot of people are unconscious of the fact that that's what they're looking for, but more and more each day are beginning to become conscious of the fact that, hey, this is what we're going through. This is what's happening here. So it's a very interesting time to be experiencing on the planet.
Well, yeah, that's really key, isn't it? It's about becoming conscious and waking up, really.
Yeah.
So, You know, you talk about capitalism and our finance model. Talk with me about capitalism. You think it's working?
Well, I mean, I think it's evident that what we're experiencing in terms of the financial system and the economic system, how all that functions, and every aspect of it, and all the layers, everything that affects it, it's not really built for the type of world where we can all really just kind of experience and have a certain level of freedom. I mean, there's so many facets of it. There's so many factors that kind of, I mean, it's built to enslave people. I mean, if you look at even the way money comes into the system, whether it's through the Federal Reserve, whether it's through the world banks, through the other countries and all that sort of stuff, the way it comes in itself creates enslavement. It creates perpetual debt, and so that perpetual debt is constant enslavement. It means that not only is the government itself enslaved, but now that the government and the banks then go and enslave the population. So even if you look, everything is about let's pump as much stuff as we can pump out in a most cost-efficient type of way if possible, not thinking about what it does to the human body, not thinking about what it does to the planet or anything of that nature. And what that does is it obviously creates a level of destruction. And it's like I always say, you have people who are obsessed with money. They love money. They want to play with money. They do anything to make money. Yet they're destroying the planet that they live and experience on, where they can have that money. And they're getting close to a point where they're going to destroy the planet enough where it can't even sustain us. So it's like, what do you want? You either want to destroy yourself or you have the money. And when you have the money, you're going to kill yourself anyway. So you have to make a choice. What's more important is you continue to be able to experience the planet and all that sort of stuff, or continuing to have money around, because no matter what we try and do to revive this system, there's a zero way in existence right now where we can continue playing with this system and actually survive as a race on the planet. We have to dump the whole thing. And everybody feels that inside, and everybody knows that deep inside that this is something that we do need to let go of. The control structure, the elite are trying to keep it in place, but everybody knows, and even the control structure. See, the thing is, the system itself and everything that we're experiencing, including the elite and including the control structure, is all an agreed experience. See, a lot of people forget that the people that make up the control mechanism are all souls too. They're all souls. Everybody is souls. We've contracted to have this experience, to play this role for one another so that we can have this growth. Now, sure, to a degree, we got lost. We got lost in this experience. It wasn't necessarily supposed to go on as long and to the intensity and to the degree as it is going on right now. However, we take away the judgment. We begin to realize, hey, you know what? These guys are playing a role for us. They're making things challenging. They're making things hard. But we know within us, we have within us that this doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to continue. None of us, in a true level, if you truly go inside, are enjoying what we're experiencing here. Everybody knows that there's a push to make a change. And we just need to take that change, and we need to first, change ourselves consciously so that we can begin to project a whole new world, and then the external world will begin to actually shift itself also. And a lot of steps will have to be made and will be made in the coming future, where we will begin dismantling the system, and then we will begin implementing something that is new, but it'll be free flowing. It's not going to be here. We're going to implement a new system. We're going to implement something that allows us to continue to grow, continue to evolve. And the system it'll be somewhat of a system, somewhat of a structure, but it'll continue to go. It's not going to be a set piece.
So do you think that the block to that transformation, if you will, to something new is, do you think that most people get caught with that feeling of personal powerlessness to make any real change, anything that's really going to make any kind of consciousness change within the group as opposed to just in their own personal life?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That plays a factor for sure, and that's again by design. I mean, the ego. If you're looking at the ego here, it's like you have a software program that is programmed for this world, and it is programmed to function within this world and to be attached to this world. And everything that is put out there, everything that is done, is purposely designed to create a trap for that program to keep itself pumping, to keep itself very strong, to keep itself very vibrant within each person. And that's why people feel powerless when they see things, because they're not even going beyond that level of consciousness. They're not going beyond their ego. When they begin to step beyond that and they begin to see what's really playing out here, when they look at the bigger picture of everything, all of a sudden, all those thoughts, all those feelings and the vibration that's being emanated, that is continuing to, what you call, what's the word, perpetuate the system, it begins to diminish. It begins to weaken, and the power and everything. I mean, you can see it already. Look at the instability that's going on with the system. I mean, there's two levels of what's playing out with the instability of the system. The first level is the fact that, yeah, we're starting to see that, the system itself is not really in a design to continue to work. It kind of is going to fall apart. There's always basically a boiling point that's going to allow everything to fall apart. But at the same time, this is all coming about, and this is all happening because more and more people are beginning to take away the power that they're giving to the system and it needing to be there. We're basically holding up the system with our hands. And the more people that take their hands away from it, the weaker and weaker it gets, the more unstable it becomes. The more the external world starts to show a reflection of what's going on inside of people, which is we want change here. We want to start changing things. We want to start creating a totally new experience. And what happens is more and more stability happens. Instability happens, and that's basically what we're beginning to see more and more. It's just.
Do you think the Occupy movements are really a signal of that very idea?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the Occupy movement, I mean, a lot of people, they talk about, and to a degree they're correct. I mean, the Occupy movement was started by the control mechanism to create an idea that that the people need to be controlled, that they're crazy, they're taking it to the streets, that they're going nuts, we need to bring in some form of control here, we need more military, we need more of this. That's what initially started. But what happened? The consciousness inside of people overtook that initial plan, and people went to the streets, and the whole message, the whole awareness that was being created from it now was something on the more, I guess, what you can call positive side of things. People are beginning to question. It's starting to make, nobody was violent, nobody destroyed everything. It wasn't something that where everybody was saying, oh man, these people need to be controlled, all this sort of stuff, because the consciousness on the planet is different now. So in a sense, the elite created the Occupy movement, but it backfired, because humanity's consciousness is creating something totally different now. It's to a point where they can try certain things, like even the Coney 2012 thing. Coney 2012 comes out. The whole idea behind that was, hey, let's create a distraction. Let's create something where people can vilify, where they can look at one little area of the world where someone is doing something minuscule in comparison to what, say, the U.S. military is doing, going in and terrorizing other, countries and all that stuff. And let's put all the focus and all the pressure on these people, and let's get everybody wrapped up in judging and hating this person and all this stuff, and make it feel like, hey, we're bringing change, we're doing something. But the truth behind the matter is the Coney thing, they haven't been doing anything since 2006 in Uganda, so that's not even an issue. And it takes all the attention away from what's actually going on. And these are the various things. But what's happening now is people are beginning to see through the Coney thing. Now there's probably more backlash towards the whole Coney thing than there is support. And that's the beauty of the consciousness shift, is that people are beginning to see through everything, because now they're beginning to see beyond the program. They're beginning to see beyond what's driving them. And it's allowing them to see the clear picture. And it's allowing them to make new choices and have a completely different awareness. And that's the power of the shift right now.
How much do when we talk about some of the countries out there that, where there's war going on and all kinds of things, how much do you see poverty and isolation as an issue, a block to all of this? Because there are huge numbers of people who on a daily basis are more worried about a meal than they are about going inward. It's like somehow or other, how do we change this where people are getting fed? Because I think that's an important part of what we're doing. It's like if all I got to worry about is how my next meal is coming, I'm not thinking about much else.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing is because we're all connected. Humanity, every single soul is connected, not only to each other but also to a collective matrix. So I mean, as people are beginning to shift and they're uploading their own new consciousness to the collective matrix, it's made available for the rest of humanity to essentially download from. So as certain souls are, so to speak, lightening the matrix, it affects every other soul, because now all of a sudden their whole consciousness is beginning to shift also. So each person is just making a shift. So when you look at some of the areas of the world that may have some poverty, they may not be able to have food, all that sort of stuff, those people, they are to a degree having their consciousness shift also. But it is important to understand that in different areas of the world, whatever is going on, whatever is being experienced, is all just a role that's being played by them. By, each person, whether the Western world is playing the role of, maybe being locked up in materialism and having everything and seeing that whole side of humanity, then you have maybe what in Africa, where people are a lot more poor, or they don't really have what they need, all that sort of stuff. That's playing a role. So it allows humanity to look at both sides of things and say, look at what we've created here. We have everything over here, and these people have nothing. Why are we doing this? Why are we creating this? And you'll see more and more as the consciousness continues to shift, more will happen where these people will have more needs met, where they'll have things made available. But at the same time, there's a level of shifting and consciousness changing that will go on within them, regardless of beginning to have a lot of their external world change. And that's the whole thing that we have to look at, is that the internal world can change regardless of the external situations. Sure, there's things keeping things in place to not allow us to as easily look into the internal world, but it does shift as more and more of us shift. And going back to just the whole thing, things will begin to shift externally to allow people to have a more, I guess, what you can call provided for type of experience as humanity as a whole begins to shift.
Well, it does seem that balance plays a huge role in all of this. When you look at India, in your work, you talk about our materialistic attitude here in the West, and that's true. We have been, but by the same token, for centuries, India was completely towards the spiritual, to the place where poverty just was rampant, and they've changed and decided that, hey, the answer may not have been in that place with that spirituality. They're trying to find their way into the 21st century. Do you think what we need is that space they talk about where East meets West, where there's kind of a balance point that we hit with all this?
Well, I mean, I guess to a degree. I mean, you have various experiences from all over the world, and each culture, each level of the world, and everything like that brings in a different experience and a different level of understanding. I mean, the consciousness, the level of understanding, the oneness consciousness that we're moving towards is something that's inherent and is common across absolutely everybody. I mean, whether you're looking at it from an Eastern religion type thing or Western religion type thing, there's a lot of dogmas or a lot of this and that here and there within each religion, whether it's from the East or the West, that does to a degree play a little bit of a closing off factor. So I think what happens is there's a level of going beyond whatever we're doing in the East, whatever we're doing in the West, and going beyond it all and beginning to say, what is the internal truth that's beyond how we're experiencing things on either side? And there's something beyond all of it, and that's common with all of us, no matter how we get there, whether it's going through, the experience of what it's like to experience on the East side of things, where things are, more spiritual, this, that, or whatever, or going through the materialistic world. I think you can see that when you look at some of the Western people, they have what some people may call an Eastern understanding, where they're more spiritual, this, that, or whatever. But at the same time, they're just drawing from the same consciousness, the same truth, the same knowing that the people on the East can, right? So I think it's just a level of really everybody going beyond whatever the culture is, going beyond whatever the belief in that area is, going beyond how it functions in that area, and going to a point where you're opening yourself up to what's truly inside me. And I think everybody is going to be able to share their experience to some degree with others. That's going to allow them to trigger and to explore that side of things.
Well, that going beyond that you talk about, really kind of segues into another area that you talk about. I think they just kind of match up, and that is, let's talk about frequencies and vibrations. And you were talking earlier how you had that shift from the heaviness of your ego, your dark side, to that finer kind of energy that the soul or the spirit, whatever you want to call it, really produces. Give us your idea of give us frequencies and vibrations and the importance and how we begin to change our own frequency.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, everything that we're seeing here, everything that is essentially light, and it at the same time all vibrates at a certain frequency. And the thing is we've been experiencing as humanity, I mean, I think in the past, I'm not 100% sure on the date, but I think it's in and around sometime in the late 80s, we were experiencing around 7 hertz here on the planet in the physicality. So what's happening is you have, from that point to now, I think we're in and around 11 point something hertz. So already there's been a frequency difference there. But to bring that into understanding, basically what's happening is everything is frequencies, everything is light, and everything is just vibrating at a certain frequency. And the ego can only operate within a certain band of frequency because it's set to operate within a certain band of frequency. And that's why what happens is everything that we're kind of exposed to, everything that we're doing, everything that we eat through the food, all that sort of stuff, and even the frequencies that are emitted from satellites, from the moon, from all that sort of stuff that the elite are doing, it keeps humanity vibrating at a certain frequency so that the ego can really play its role and play its game for us. And what's happening is as you begin, because deep in our natural state, we're all naturally high vibrating beings. All of us are high vibrating. It's just that we're having frequencies come in that lower it. So all we're doing now is you're taking away the various things that are lowering your frequency, so that it just brings you more back up to your natural state. So whether you're taking away certain emotional attachments, whether you're taking away certain belief systems, whether you're changing what you're eating, what you're having exposed to, all that sort of stuff, it's raising your frequency. It's bringing it back up to the natural state that it's at. And you can feel things. You can feel all that. I mean, if you're coming from a place of anger and you're really mad and all that sort of stuff, how does that feel? Versus when you are just being very neutral, very, very open, very peaceful. How does that feel? You can see there's a completely different frequency on both sides of it. And if you really pay attention, I mean, same with when you're eating something. If you really take the time to go and you say you had a Big Mac beside you, and then you had a nice organic apple, and you ate one of them and you felt how it made you feel inside, what it felt like to go through your body, to the different changes that go on, versus when you bit the apple and you felt how those frequencies felt, you would feel a difference in frequency through the whole thing. And that's basically kind of the various things that affect us, how you can feel it, what's going on, and the whole thing is essentially frequencies playing at different ranges, so to speak.
Well, I think when you talk about frequencies, I think that really speaks to, a huge part of all this. It's been my experience that we vibrate based on our belief system. And, what I believe, whether it's I believe I ought to eat a Big Mac, or I ought to eat an apple, or I believe the ego controls everything and that's fine, or I believe that, the spirit needs to control. The way that all that changes that frequency, and I see it in you, when you talk about how your early days as opposed to where you're at now, is that as we change a belief, our frequency begins to change. And with each belief that I change, my frequency changes. And that's at least that's been my experience. So when you were talking about that in your film, I couldn't agree more. It's just hugely important.
Absolutely.
So tell me, what's the? There are other films that have been out there that kind of speak to a lot of some of what you really bring to us in your film. How did you see Zeitgeist compared to your film? Where do you position yourself in that frame?
Well, I mean, Zeitgeist has played an awesome role for a lot of people. I mean, even to a degree. I mean, when Zeitgeist, the first Zeitgeist came out, it helped me along in understanding and seeing beyond some of the various things and structures in the world and how they worked. I mean, the religious side of things, I mean, it helped push me a little further to continue to explore. I came to the understanding that part of what they were sharing was obviously not quite correct, but at the same time, that was offering people exactly what they needed. And that's what was perfect about the whole thing, is it was opening people up. And Zeitgeist has been a huge catalyst in opening people up to something more. Personally, I mean, I guess the place where we come from when we do our work is we try and bring a lot more of a conscious side of things. We really look at what the internal is creating and what the internal is basically allowing us to experience, versus just looking at the external world and saying the external world's the problem, we need to shift that. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. I feel that there's a lot more to it than that, and I really think that on a conscious level we need to understand that, you know, we are creating the external world, and we're creating the external world from a certain level of consciousness. And what we need to do is begin to shift that level of consciousness to begin to understand there's way more that we can do beyond this level of consciousness. Because even when you look at some of the solutions that are necessarily posed through Zeitgeist in their films, a lot of them, if you look at them, still have a lot of attachment to this level of the way the world functions and all that sort of stuff. Sure, some things are a little bit more open-ended, some things are this, but there's still a lot of infrastructure that is very similar to how we're functioning now. And the truth is, with the technologies that we have, with the consciousness that we can unlock and all that sort of stuff, we can go so far beyond that stuff. It's the sky's really the limit. I mean, there's so much more to experience. So where we come from what we're doing is all we're doing is just offering a different way of looking at things. It's just coming from a more conscious side, something that is more geared towards shifting within and then taking that new awareness, that new understanding of a completely different consciousness and bringing in an external world based on that. But I think all in all, each film, everything that's put out there, no matter who's making it, no matter where it's going, is playing a role, and it's playing the exact role that it needs to play.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you there. Well, you know, I'll tell you what, you guys, you do some really great work. I think you're, you know, I'm sure, you know, your future work's going to be even more powerful as you know, moving forward. Where can our audience, where can folks find your film? Give us a website and where they can buy the film and where they might be able to view it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you go to www.collective-evolution.com, from there you'll be able to see all of our articles, all of our updates, everything that we do. There's a link in the navigation bar there to a store that'll lead you to where you can buy our first documentary, our second documentary, also the fluoride documentary, or you can buy it all as a pack. So that's where you can purchase stuff like that. If you also pay attention on that page, there is to the right-hand side on the sidebar, there's our film there. It's currently in a film festival. If you wish to watch it there and help support us, you can do that. What that does is it allows us to kind of gain more popularity in the festival, and it opens us up to a potentiality of getting some funding through the festival to fund our future work. So we do appreciate if people do watch from that link and do share from that link, but you can also view, we release all of our films for free on YouTube. We do sell the DVDs just simply to fund our work. I mean, a lot of this stuff costs a lot of money, and we don't take a salary from any of it. We put our full-time effort into this because it really takes a lot of hours to do all of this stuff. But so we do sell the DVDs, because many people ask that question. But we do release everything for free because first and foremost, we need to have this stuff get out to humanity. So we do release for free on YouTube. That can be viewed at channel C Evolution TV. You can subscribe to us and keep up with everything that we release through there.
I'll tell you what, I really would recommend, whether they watch it for free or they watch it however they see it, that they buy a copy of your films just to help promote your work.
Yep.
To give you guys some funds so you can do more. You know, we've ran out of time, Joe, but I'm really pleased that we were able to do a whole show and have the whole conversation. You've been an excellent guest. I've enjoyed my time with you. At some point you do your next film, you contact us. We'll have you back again.
Cool, George. I appreciate the opportunity very much, and we'll also be having there's some very exciting news that we're going to be releasing some pretty soon too. A new project that we're going to be unveiling completely, so people can get a little bit of a teaser of that through our website also. In the bar, it's called the Shift Project. But yes, when we release our next documentary and Shift Project takes off, we'll be in touch.
Fantastic. And if you and your fellow filmmakers get down here around Florida, Sarasota way, look me up. We'll have a cup of coffee together or share a meal or something. I look forward to seeing you in person.
Cool. That'd be awesome. Yeah, we'd love to travel. So hopefully it'll happen one day.
Good deal. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate your coming on. Have a good night, my friend.
Awesome. You too, George.
Well, good guest tonight. And I just, for 24, 25-year-old men to be in the middle of the kind of work that they're doing, I think it's phenomenal. It really speaks to the reality that there is a shift in progress and that it probably can't be stopped. Got a great guest coming next week. Be sure and come back, 9 o'clock, Tuesday nights, Eastern Standard Time, right here on sbnvideo.tv. In the meantime, don't forget to accentuate the positive and have a fantastic week.